Hey everybody, and welcome to The Breakthrough Effect. I'm your host, Jared Sebesta. I've had two successful careers. First, I was an award-winning TV meteorologist, and then a financial marketing strategist. I was living the dream, making good money, but inside I was craving for something more, something bigger. So I stopped deferring life and I started creating exactly the life I was searching for. I doubled down on unlearning old mindsets and creating big breakthroughs for me and my family. And now I'm bringing that same transformation to you. Let's understand the rules of this game. Let's get clarity. Let's stop chasing and start becoming. This is The Breakthrough Effect. All right, today on The Breakthrough Effect, I am talking with the Marianne Rombola, a recalibration coach who specializes in the most dangerous disconnect high achievers face, the one between who you are internally and the life you're living externally. She's the founder of The Journey Within Practice. She's NLP-certified. She spent over a decade working behind the scenes with millionaires, billionaires, and public figures who are outwardly successful, but internally misaligned. Get ready for a breakthrough conversation that will challenge you to stop surviving and start living aligned, grounded, and free. Please welcome to the show, Marianne Rombola. Marianne, thanks for joining me today.
Jared, that was awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so psyched to be here with you.
I've known you for over a year. We've crossed paths a few times. I'm super pumped for this conversation. So let's dive right in. All right. How does somebody know that they're misaligned? And what's the first step that they can do to course correct?
Yeah. So many of the people that I've come in contact with, including myself, we just had something, an ache inside. Not like it feels unfulfilling. You feel like you're in the day-to-day grind, or like, oh, this is happening again. Like, even though you have your routine and disciplines and it looks good on the outside, you have the car, you have the career and everything, but there's that internal loneliness. When you identify that, right, that's when it's time to get curious.
So what kind of questions can people be asking themselves?
Yeah, like, so, why? Why am I doing this? Why is this coming up? Where is this coming from? Why do I have this discomfort? Ask yourself, be with yourself, asking like, what is it? And usually it's what we're pretending not to know. Usually everybody already has the answers, especially our thought leaders. It's just that they've been in positions to please their whole life.
So you talked about people that are like super successful. You worked with people now for many, many years. These are like the cream of the crop. I think it's hard for people to understand or believe that they feel that way. Because again, when we aren't at that level, we think like once we get there, all that's going to go away. I'm assuming that would be that would not be a true statement.
It's so funny. A lot of times, like they work from a lot of logic or from an analyzer mindset, okay, of a controller way of being, because they know how to get the job done. Though the disconnect is with the feelings, right? Like going in the day-to-day building, we can forget sometimes the why and the cause. Okay. And the drift out in the world, which I call the drift, is heavy. The noise, what everybody else is doing. Who are we here to satisfy? Who are we here to please? Especially coming from a leadership position and you have the responsibility of a team and people relying on you. And when your internal starts to become off, when you're being pulled in many directions, whether it's a wife, husband, complaining employees, there is a time where you get sidetracked, and it's really like being an advisor, staying on track to the mission, the cause, the original why, because things are going to hit. We just don't know when. Problems are going to arise. Conflicts are going to arise, and it's really going to be in the way we be and handle it. And in these experiential learning environments, we were working with like what works and what doesn't based on results. How can we live in a world that actually works? And it has to match our thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations, or else, that ego can be strong. And I work with a lot of men right? And we can get butt hurt. That's why the foundation of the work I do, everybody gets to read the 4 agreements.
It's a great book, and I highly recommend people read it. You talked about the first step is to get curious, right? Ask questions. Where is this coming from? Let's unpack that a little bit more, right? Like how much, where else could we have to go in our mind, in our thinking, in our actions to really identify that that blockage that likely we are creating? I'm not putting words in your mouth here, but I think we'd probably both agree we are creating the blockage somewhere. So how do we identify what that is to allow that release of flow to open up?
So, first of all, be willing. Be willing to be curious and be willing to grow emotionally. Okay. So, if you're always frustrated, like that's not a life you want to live. If you're always angry or feeling obligation, those ways of being don't work. Those don't bring abundance. That doesn't bring calm or ease or flow state. Though there are many masters out there that could get into flow state, okay, and disregard everything that's going on, but it shows up in life in other areas. You can maybe have one area, but it's showing up somehow in all areas of life.
Let's demystify this just a little bit. Like, what does that even mean? Like, I have an idea what it means, but like, how would you define that state? And more importantly, how do you get there?
Oh my God, this is so awesome because you know what? I've been working on this for years. Okay. Less distractions, right? First of all, it's removing all the noise. Second of all, one thing that really had me notice an exercise that I've done once is I'm going to tell you, which was just recently within the last year, which really said, wow, I can identify flow state. And it was fire walking. And I've done many different trainings in the transformational arena. Okay. Fire walking really brought flow state because you have to be in a different state of mind to walk on these coals. Okay. I'm talking about you're building this bonfire, 6 of them or 8 of them. And when you're doing it, you have to be in a place. And it's what my mentor did to get me there first to get me because I knew something wasn't going to happen. All right. And one of the other exercise, which was, I know many people have done breaking the board. Okay. Yeah. You could break the board, but break the board softly by just going like this. I knew I wasn't focused enough and it wasn't going to happen. And it really made me get more curious. Why would everybody watching, can I not get into this state? And it had me get into more of a practice of meditation no matter where I'm at to be laser focused.
I got to admit, all right, so I grew up in the
Yeah.
middle of the country. I live in rural mid-America, right? So like
Mhm.
we talk about firewalking, immediately I'm thinking of Tony Robbins doing this. Like I was never exposed to this. I didn't know why somebody would do this. You talked about not only doing it, but the state of mind you had to get into, and you had to have your mentor help you with that. What do you mean by that? What state of mind? What do you
I,
mean? Like how did you disconnect from reality? Like
yeah,
talk
this is
about that.
part of my later training, by the way. This is just like this past year, right? And I'm a girl from Brooklyn, so
Right.
you're talking about firewalking. It's like, what? You know what I mean? Like, bring me, to Wall Street, bring me to the park. Firewalking is really where it's Bucky O'Neill does it. He's one of my mentors, and he wanted me to gain further access and flow state, and anybody, not just me, who he brings to this. And since we're always growing, I'm always growing. Of course, I had to experience this, and I realized where my focus was in the exercises and where exactly fear comes up. Even to better identify it with my clients one on one, it allows me to be present to the experience that I am actually creating. So now a lot of this is learned and in the practice. I believe, even for myself, it just meets you where you are at firewalking. Okay. It's going to shoot you, 20 feet further than it would have taken you. So it just gets you connected within yourself, not for the others, with yourself on a whole nother level.
Exactly. So like, let's talk about fear for a second. In your mind to do that exercise, and then we'll transition this to life and business. What do you have to do in your mind to either rise above that fear or disconnect from it?
It really just requires letting go and trusting yourself and knowing that you're doing this because you are protected and you're guided. Honestly, it goes into like this whole faith thing and this intuitive sense, which only, it's not the only way, but in this particular exercise is going through process and knowing in your mind you are capable of doing this and believing it, because if not, it's not going to happen. Just like with one of the exercises to get me there, right? I knew I wasn't breaking that board. I could break it hard with a hard hit, but I couldn't break it with a soft one because I couldn't get my mind into the place it required to be. So the practice is like a samurai, okay? Samurai, what mission are you on? What are you presenting in front of me? And how am I going to tackle that the best way I can? And in firewalking, when you're at that point, you go. And you don't get any burns on yourself. Now, if you have anything in you, it's going to get they're called sun-kissed blisters. And it'll show you exactly where you hold on. And I did get 2 little ones. And some people get none and some people get many. Okay? Though the process is really revealing in the word I used was flow. My word is actually glide, where I get to be gliding in life because that's what I want to experience. That's what we all should be able to sustain in ourselves is that state.
So how does that translate into I'm building a business, I'm trying to make a pivot? A lot of the people that listen to the show, they're high achievers. They're either crushing it or they're stuck or they know there's another level, but they're afraid, right? So what's like a mental exercise or practice maybe that you do or you teach your clients to emulate this point that you're making, but on a practical level?
Yeah. So in my program, okay, in my program, the practices that we do is that, our thoughts, our feelings, and the physical sensation, that awareness is alive. It comes from certainty and uncertainty, okay? And that's where you develop clarity in that in-between space where you make the choice. So, am I doing this out of ego? Am I doing this out of, the goodness of my heart? Is this for the I, the we, and the all? How does it affect each other? First, it has to affect the individual and be congruent within them. Because if they're putting anything out there that is not congruent with them, that it's going to come up later in life, whether it's in your business, in your marriage, in your friendships, it's across the board, in your health. It's going to show up somehow. And this isn't about any longer like getting better. It's knowing internally, I need to choose differently because this no longer is working for me. All the Band-Aids. I've seen Band-Aids and Band-Aids, but it's not until somebody goes all in on who they are and what they believe and they follow through. So in leadership, in people that I've worked for, it is so, especially in the political arena, okay? Or even with, one of these billionaires I work with, the pull of what you want to create in your own life, there's a drift and you have to make choices here. And we see it in America today, okay? You have to choose the light or the dark, okay? So what are we speaking into when we are speaking? Because our words are the most revealing of that. And if they are not matching, right, it doesn't mean you don't feel that's what's going through. You need to bring yourself into congruency because your message isn't getting across the way you would like it.
What I hear you saying is there's things that we're doing, there's even things that we're thinking that are not in alignment, so to speak, right? And so we can choose to rise above that. We can choose to replace those thoughts with truth that once we get to those states and there's more alignment, then that opens the door to, I'm not to use the firewalking phrase, not get burned by life, so to speak, right? Okay. So let's take this a little bit of a step further. Talk about that conversation in your head, because the biggest transformation I've seen is the conversation going on in my head, which has directly changed my results and how my life has transpired.
Yeah, bring it back to basics. We kind of started at a very elevated place with firewalking. Okay, let's start with the basics. So, like, yeah, it's how are we talking to ourselves? How are we saying, like, can I do this? I can't do
Mm-hmm.
this. These words all make a difference in everyday life. Am I telling my kids, you're brilliant, or that was stupid? Even if it was stupid, like, can we say something different so they can receive it in
Mm-hmm.
a positive way? Today society has become so like off in the meaning, and this is the one that I'm bringing up. And one of my really good friends, like, this is his symbol, right? Is the middle finger. Or I know in New York, the F word is used like off the charts. Okay. Like, it's taken out. It can be used in a way of funniness, but when it's overused now, all these labels are overused. So since as a human being we label things, I get to make sure that I'm in a transformational way of language. And, even in leadership, when we're talking to the people of our communities, or of our business employees, or let's go higher, of the nation, right? Let's focus on solutions. Let's speak into the positive. And just like in like teaching our teenagers, right? Let's go to source. If you have a problem with it, go to source. And are you constructing, when you are talking to somebody else about somebody else, are we constructing from a positive intention? Energy behind everything matters, because energy, you could fake it, but the energy will never lie. And that's one of my gifts. I read energy. So when I read,
Mm.
okay, the microscopic movements. The thing was, you know what I found out, Jared? Reason with things that had stopped me in my life, I wasn't doing it to myself on the micro level, and I needed to. Okay, but that's the
Mm.
altitude we
I
all
love that.
eventually get to take.
That's near and dear to my heart, because that's been a massive shift for me personally in the last several years. And there's lies that we live by, right? I know you've worked with a lot of people over a lot of years. What's like that most common lie that even the
Mm.
super successful still tell themselves?
So the question I ask, and where all the juice is, and the biggest the question to be curious about, what are you pretending not to know? They all know. We all know. It's that one thing that may have happened a long time ago, and it keeps coming up in different ways or shapes or forms, but they're not able to identify it. And it's usually why we're choosing to stay in the ache, the stuckness. Okay. So the one thing you asked me, what mostly comes up, is not admitting that they are hurt, that they got hurt in their life. Because like I said, I work with a lot of men. Okay. Even though I could work with women, uh, hurt men still thrive in ego. They haven't received the vulnerability yet of exposing and being transparent to what is. So a lot of men who still work from ego have a lot of things that they're out of integrity in. So that's what I find.
Powerful, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. You've talked about how holding it together, just being in a state where we're just kind of holding it together, while on the outside seems like a viable way to do our life and our business, is actually probably the thing that prevents us from going to the next level, not only from a business standpoint but also a freedom standpoint. Talk about that for a second. How people can kind of break free from that.
Yeah, really think about, what are you cultivating? What do you want? How do you want to live? We could bring this in many directions. We could go back to the Bible. We could go back to, governments, right? This is up to you and nobody else. in self-mastery. Master who you are, what you enjoy most. Okay, we do still live in a free country, but the word freedom comes from within ourselves. And that's where, the message has gotten lost, the self responsibility. And in leaders, it's a bigger responsibility, right? Because as and I use the word leaders, right? Even though I work in a very intimate, personal, one-on-one type of space, not in a corporate environment, I'm talking about them because they're here to inspire, right? Lead by example. I want you to do your job better than I do my own job, or be a better person than I be, but I'm going to lead by example. And that is not happening today in a lot of areas. A lot of companies, before I created and went all in on the journey in practice, which has existed for years, but I wasn't all in on it, was I was embedded in these environments that wanted to change cultures, okay? Though it stems from the leadership. If they weren't supported, you have to really go from the top down. What are we cultivating? And if it's not being cultivated up there, then you need to shift. You need to move, okay? And if you are the leader, you have to really take a look at yourself. Why is this happening? Why is this repeating itself, right? Like, though they have to be willing to take a look at themselves. I don't care, a billionaire. Doesn't matter. I worked for a billionaire, and I always tell Dave and even Craig, I worked for the wrong one. And I don't mind saying this because he knows how I felt. So this isn't, a private thing. He was just into a different way of life than I am. They were more, gypsy related. They work hard and go into this like suffering. Like I'm here to put systems and solutions in place. There's an easier way of life. You don't have to create debt. You don't have to do this. It wasn't resonating with them in the personal responsibility in that they still wanted to cultivate, whether it was even having drugs around. Like, this is toxic behaviors and an environment that really pushed me out of my comfort zone. And I had to say, you know what? I don't care how much I'm going to get paid, or if I'm a single mother at home, I am not aligned, and walk away. And that kept happening in my life until, I decided, okay, you know what? Transformation has been in my life since 2008. This is what I'm here for, to help each individual create a better way. So what I now say is, I come into your space on purpose because I'm leaving it better than you found it. Whether it's a place, person, or thing, I am leaving it better than I found it. And when I owned the hair salon, Jared, that's what I used to say. Anybody who comes in here, love lives here. So I want to create from there.
I hear you say accountability a lot, and I think that is like one of the foundational pieces to transformation. You've got to figure out that you get a say in this life, and that's a big deal to me. I didn't realize I had one there for most years, right? There's a saying that I have, and I want to hear your opinion on this. I believe that our lives are way more choreographed than we have any clue to. But also at the same time, too, we have the ability to decide and create a new experience, a new destiny at any given moment. What would be your opinion on those two statements?
100%. You have to be willing. All you have to do is be open and willing to a new possibility, and you're worthy enough. A lot of mine came from, self-worth. I was around these really big, powerful people, but it's been my training ground. You can't get an education in this. Okay. So be willing to take a look at what you want versus where you're at, accept where you're at, and start compounding, getting where you want to go. Because if you want to do the work, it's available.
There's two more questions here, and then I want to wrap this up because we're out of time already. You talked about how you went all in. I think that's something so powerful. Like when you go all in, something happens in the universe. Like everything falls in your favor. There's people listening to this right now. They don't know what to go all in on. They see maybe a career path could go this way. I could stay at my company. I could jump. I could start my own business. What do you tell people? Because they're hearing you and I talk about go all in and take ownership and do it, right? But they don't know which path to take. How do you help people make that decision as to which one they should quote unquote go all in on?
Oh, wow. And it's such an individual thing. It's so personal. And that's why I say, be curious. Though if you're thinking of something, it exists already. It exists already. So just start mapping out and removing things in your life. So map out what's going to take you closer to the point where you want to be, and start releasing and letting go everything that's not. Jared, you and I placed ourselves in rooms with people in what we wanted to do and be and create. And look where we are today. We're here and now. And that's what it's about. Stepping into, a lot of people say stepping into the light, stepping into your own light, following the direction that lights your heart on fire. This is about heart-centered living, which is a different take on life. People don't want to talk about the heart, right? Talk about our feelings. That's all I want to talk about. That's it. I want to know what makes you feel and what sustains you. You know what? Because I had to discover what sustains me, though I also see a bigger picture. The I, the we, and the all. So I really see it from a collective. Okay. And this is why, all of us, we could work with anybody, but where can I be the most effective? And who can I be the most effective with? Where can I gain the most knowledge to pursue what I want to pursue? And double down on that and immerse yourself in what you love. Even if it doesn't make you any money, eventually it will. Just do what you love. It's so simple.
This is a beautiful conversation. Thank you for sharing your heart and your passion behind this. I love this here. There's just one quick question I want to ask you here as we wrap up, and this is kind of a question I ask most of my guests, or something to this effect. But if you could go and install, we've probably mentioned a little bit already. I don't want you to have to beat the dead horse here. But like if you could go in to reach into somebody's minds, into their brains, and install one internal truth about themselves, what would that one be?
Oh, the one truth about themselves. I think one quality that we all have, dream big and then dream bigger.
Boom. We've chatted before, and these are like very high level conversations. And so I agree with you. This is where I like to live as well. So you're speaking my love language here today. I love this. Thank you for spending some time with me today. First of all, I love your accent. I know you live in Vegas, but I love the hardcore New York accent, which is fantastic.
I'm a Brooklyn person through and through. The accent is never leaving me, right? The forwardness is never leaving me, which, ends up to be my gift, because in position, in identifying the unseen, sometimes it's uncomfortable and forward, but being that forward and getting people to be in the discomfort, right? It's the gift.
The next time we see each other, we're going to have to get some coffee. We're going to have some coffee. We're going to sit down and have a talk. I love it.
Of course. I need some dates. Let's throw some dates out there, whether it's New York, by you next time. Hopefully I get to come to one of your events, because, I'm not an events thrower, but I love meeting everybody at the events so far. So it's been ideal, and love working with you and being your friend. Likewise.
Before I let you go, where can people find more about you? I know you're on Instagram. You got a website. Tell people where they can find you.
It's, MarianneRombola.com.
Easy breezy. Make sure you give her a follow on Instagram. I'll have her links in the show notes, so go grab that. Marianne, thanks for joining me today. A lot of fun. Well done.
Bye, guys. Thanks for having me.
You're a rock star.
I feel like we started out a little backwards. I started out with firewalking instead of the original, but it was good. It was perfect the way it is.
If this conversation sparked something in you, don't let it fade. Please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. Don't forget to connect with me online as well. Follow me at Jared Sebesta on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, or dive deeper at my website, jaredsebesta.com, where all my free trainings and resources are waiting for you. And remember, stop chasing the life you want and start becoming. This is the Breakthrough Effect. We'll see you next time.